Oh. Hello, friended Mr. Adam. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm great. I'm so glad you're joining me today. We were actually just talking about our last conversation, and I think that just because a few aspects of my views have changed, I think I'm looking at that conversation differently, which is why I thought I was being a little bit cunty. And
Did you listen to it recently?
no, I haven't
Is that
listened to it recently. I just
okay?
remember I should do. That might be a good exercise to engage in, actually, is to listen to it.
I've noticed doing enough of these live streams that I have that sensation. I think, oh God, I was such a dick. I should have never been that that much of a dick.
Yeah.
And then I listen back and I'm like, man, I wasn't bad at all. What was I thinking?
Yeah, I think
So
maybe hopefully it'll be a case of that, but I remember being particularly catty and just trying to start shit because I was just so married to what I was thinking at the time, and I was super anti Jordan Peterson, and you were like, "No, no, Jordan Peterson." And I was like, "No, no, fuck you." So, I think maybe because I felt that attitude inside,
that's funny.
I kind of came out in little ways that maybe you didn't notice. You just kind of let it roll off, so that's cool.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. So what else has been going on with you?
Just working on my house, doing some new paintings. I'm working with a great artist on a graphic novel of a screenplay that I wrote, which will probably be crowdfunding towards the end of the year.
Cool.
So a lot of interesting stuff like that.
That's cool. You
Trying to
can
make,
draw and stuff?
yeah, yeah, I'm an
Oh, that's
artist.
cool.
That's what I do. Yeah.
I didn't know
Where,
that.
where can I find the stream so I can pull the chat up?
It is on my channel right now. I
Amy
can't.
K.
Yes, you know it.
Oh, okay,
Where
I
else
see it.
would it be?
Nice. Look at that. You're like an OBS master. Holy cow.
This is not without lots of training and
That's
just
awesome.
utter frustration that has been poured into me to get me to
We're
get on par here.
we how do we do the creepy Joe Biden thing? How do I like I feel like I could come up behind you and
You have to do it the other way.
give you a creepy Joe. What's this way?
Yes, yeah.
Amy. Amy.
Creepy
What's up?
points, check. You
Yeah,
got him.
exactly.
So you know
But
what's
yeah, I've been working on a bunch of stuff.
I was thinking, you know what? I'd like to revisit that conversation with him because I think I've become a little less militant in the way that I used to feel about that particular topic.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's what I want to hear. Like that's why I was excited to do this. I was thinking we were gonna do it on my channel, and I was thinking, well, what are we gonna call it? Like Amy turns to the dark side?
I mean, is it really the dark side? I think I just wanted to move out of an extreme realm of that particular conversation because I think it's ignorant to kind of ignore that there are some practical applications of some of the things we were talking about, namely belief, namely religion, right? And I think that I
Yeah.
just had such an aversion to it because your associations with certain groups and just wanting to be part of a tribe being one aspect, and also just it feels psychologically secure, doesn't it, to adhere to something so strongly and feel like you really stand for something. But I think ultimately I'd like to be a reasonable person. So that includes being able to operate in that gray area of the gradient where both those things kind of meet. So I think
Yeah.
that's where I
I
am.
agree. Yeah, no, that's like a very mature way to look at it. You'll definitely go further on YouTube if you take a side and beat up
Yeah,
on
I
people.
know. It is the easier way to go.
Yeah. So the thing that I the the thing that I always come back to, I'm very much a bleeding heart, and I know that a lot of atheists are kind of on the left. They are those bleeding hearts, and
Mm-hmm.
their hearts bleed for the LGBT community, which I completely respect.
Mm-hmm.
But there are other communities that benefit from religion specifically, like people in grief constantly turn to religion. And I think it helps those people. So if you're taking sides between the LGBT community and people who have a lot of just general suffering in their life, I mean that's a like a losing proposition. Those are both two communities that I think they need, you know, our sympathy.
Yeah, I mean, there are plenty of people that need our sympathy. And I think that's at the end where I come to to a head where it's like not everybody can operate at the place you want them to operate from. And this is just a
Yes.
fact of reality. And like the harder you fight against it, the more frustration you're just causing for yourself. Because change to that degree takes such a long time. You know what I mean? It has to bleed through everything and it slowly bleeds through everything. And you can't force people to change their mind. And like, you can't force someone to not feel psychologically stable when what
Yes.
they're using to psychologically stabilize themselves works for that purpose, right? Like I'm still
Yeah.
of the mind that like I'm like an atheist, anti-theist, but I like practically in the world I'm not going to behave like an asshole and not be understanding of the reality that A, B, and C.
Yeah, I understand why people do that though. A lot of people, and this is kind of just this is one of the inherent problems with religion is that they tell you your entire life that you're being told the truth, the truth, which is not entirely accurate because you're not I like I'm an atheist too. I don't believe that it's actually true. I just think that narratively
Mhm.
there's some truth to it that a lot of people can use to structure their lives
Mhm.
and become successful human beings. It doesn't work for everyone. It obviously hasn't worked for us, but at the same time, I don't want to denigrate the people who it is working for. But
Yeah.
I do, there are some people that are very militant about it. And I understand where that comes from because you get this you feel a little jilted. You feel like you've been lied to your entire life. And I mean I know that I felt a little bit of that. It just didn't last as long as it does with other people. So I mean
Mhm.
I can respect that. And also, if you've had bad experiences inside of religion, like if you were molested by a priest, for heaven's sakes, by all, like it's only rational to despise religion there. And
Mhm.
if you're LGBT, like I said, and you feel like there's this community that's just completely against something that's an innate part of you, then that feels horrible as well. So
Mhm.
I understand those communities, the gripes that they have. Hopefully religion is changing though.
Yeah, I mean, religion hasn't done anything to me personally. I just have such a strong personal distaste for it.
So what did that come from then?
What did the change come from?
No, no. What did the distaste come from? You never felt jilted like you'd been lied to?
I
What
mean,
turned you into an
it's just
anti-theist?
something that never it's something I never really cared about that much because, like, the idea of God and everything has always seemed silly to me. Like, my parents put me through religious private school and stuff, and it always just seemed like it was not appropriate or doesn't work as it like they're telling me it does, right? Because I had a pretty rough childhood. So for me, there was just no coherence with the idea that somebody's there taking care of me when all this stuff is happening to me.
Mm,
So like maybe there's a little bit of jilt in some way. There definitely was at some point, but like I think what it was is that I was um acquainted with like the atheist movement and probably in around 2011, 2012, where I really started getting into the Dawkins and the Hitchens and all that stuff. And I think that I was just particularly moved, not recognizing that like these people are like public intellectuals, right? Like, sure, you may want to adapt their positions, but it's to what degree do you want to adapt them? And I think I was just turned on 10. And then there was just like influence from people that I was hanging around that also just kind of exacerbated that kind of militant attitude, I
yeah.
guess, about it. And like even now, I mean, a few weeks ago, I think I was trying to have a conversation with a friend, and it's weird to hear myself be like, as much as religion has done A, B, and C, it's really difficult if you want to be reasonable to deny that it's also done D, E, and F, which have been positive in some way. So, like, and there's the gray area, right? There's the gray area
Totally.
that comes in where you're like, okay, well, how can we adapt the idea that, yeah, this sucks and this doesn't suck? We obviously have to move away from what does suck and what doesn't, but we can't just completely throw away the idea that some of it doesn't suck and some of it actually works for some really fundamental aspects of just like being a human being, like social cohesion being something, right? Not saying it hasn't been
Yeah, definitely.
divisive, but I mean, there is a reason that for example, religious people on average live longer, and they have like done so well on this concept of community and community building that contributes to that result occurring. So I mean, there's some things that you can model from religion that are a good thing.
Yeah, I did a debate recently where somebody was claiming that it's not the belief in God, but it is actually the community. And I don't completely disagree with that, but it seems like the belief in God strengthens the community, where the atheist community doesn't really have any kind of
Central
substance.
figure or something.
Yeah, exactly. Something substantive to rally around, because the only thing they tend to rally around is that religion is wrong, but you can only
Or
get so far
reason.
with that.
You hear the word
Yeah.
reason tossed around a lot, but that's what I hear from people like Sam Harris. I don't know if like
Yeah.
your like regular cookie cutter internet atheist is going to be like, well, we center around the concept of reason.
Yeah, I don't know how motivating that is, though. I mean,
Yeah. Well, because it's not exactly a fun exercise to engage in, right?
no,
Like,
not at
I mean,
all.
think about just going through that change for me. It's kind of strange too because I'm like, oh man, I was like so strongly this way, but now I'm really veering back and kind of considering what I'm doing, and it's uncomfortable to think I behaved this, and this way because I was just so extreme in my position. So extreme position, extreme behavior. It only goes to follow, right? You're gonna be a little bit in accordance with the degree to which you relate to whatever your idea is.
Well, the religious side definitely has prohibitions on any kind of extreme behavior, which I think is an advantage there that the atheist side doesn't necessarily
But what
have.
do you mean by that? Because a lot of extreme behavior has been committed under the name of religion. So
Well, in the past, yes, I completely agree. Like there was the I guess the Spanish, you know, were converting people by the sword. I don't think that happens today in modern discourse.
I mean, not with Christianity, but with certain other religions.
Oh yeah, definitely. Islam's like a
But
huge
we're just talking about like
problem.
the Western world.
Yeah.
So that was my bad. My apologies.
Well, no, I'm just saying, even just in interactions on the internet, that I feel like the Christians have a certain, just they're obligated to be nice to you. I did a live stream, like I think it was with Mathema, the YouTuber Mathema, and I said something about, yeah, Christians have to be nice to you, and he's like, yeah, I'm obligated to by God. It's like it's so clear there.
Yeah.
So there, that makes a lot of
But some
sense to
people
me.
need that. I feel so the thing that you realize about a lot of people is that if they didn't have fear as a motivator, they would behave badly.
Yes, yeah,
So, I
totally.
mean, there's no way that you can deny that fear isn't a good motivator. It's an excellent motivator. Need we look to like 75 years prior during the Nazi regime? No. Like even further than that, fear has always been employed as a way to like get people to do the right thing. And I feel like sometimes maybe people need to run that software in their mind to delude themselves to thinking this is the reason I need to behave like this and not because it's socially advantageous or whatever the like empirical reason would be to behave better. They can't discern that, so they need some heuristic in place to get them there. And at the end of the day, if the result is the same, if you're not going to be an asshole because you have this algorithm or this algorithm, who cares about the algorithm as long as the result is the same?
So I get a lot of flack for that, and
Yeah.
I'm curious your opinion on it, because a lot of people intuitively feel it's manipulative. Like they'll say that you're only for religion because you want to control people from being bad. And I mean, we have so many other aspects in society where we control people from being bad. I mean, we have police forces, we have courts. There are all these different ways that we employ to prevent people from being bad. And if people are opting in, like I completely disagree with forcing people to be religious. Like if you're an atheist, by all means, join the atheist team. I don't think that we should force religion upon people. But
No.
if they're opting in on their own accord, then who am I to discourage that? But then they'll say, they're believing untrue things. You should fight that. But
See,
uh,
like to some degree, I do get it, but to another degree, we all have to be honest with the fact that we operate with some degree of delusion. We all do.
Yeah,
You
I agree.
have to tell yourself a story every fucking day to get through 24 hours. And like, the thing that's been like really burned into my head lately is if you want to achieve something, if you want to do something great, you have to tell yourself you're gonna do it. Even though the odds are against you, empirically, it's impossible or very improbable. But how are you going to get past that barrier of like psyching yourself up enough to do it? You have to prime yourself. You have to delude yourself into thinking you can. And like these are just psychological fucking bugs that are a part of our brain. That's why we have such a penchant towards magical thinking, is because it's just part of our psyche. Even
Yeah,
in little ways we do it, and like we feel if you think about it, it can be a little bit uncomfortable because you're like, no, I'm an empiricist. I'm like this. I'm all about the truth. But a lot of the time, like you're serving yourself, right? Like you can't even help that that's what you're doing. And in order to do that, sometimes you are just going to engage in some level of delusion. And it would be so short sighted to say that that's not the case. We all do.
yeah. That delusion is a tool. Like everything in
It
evolution
can
starts.
be,
Yeah,
but it can also be a negative thing if it takes it to a realm where, you're
I agree.
yeah. So it's just
It's
that
like,
where on that sliding scale is it right for you to employ delusion to get to your goals, to meet your goals and your requirements, to get what you want out of whatever your life or whatever.
all things in moderation, right?
Yeah.
It's the dose that makes the medicine.
Yeah,
The,
it's difficult to discern where that is sometimes because like I find that I operate best when I've experienced one end of the spectrum, the other end of the spectrum. Now I can kind of explore this gray area more because I've mapped out these places. So there's only a few logical places that like the meaning of those two places can go, and it'll be maybe a bit of a mess, yeah, but like that's the easiest way for me to kind of find balance. Now that's how I'm bringing myself back. You know what I mean? I was at a point where I didn't give a shit, and then I really fucking cared, and now I'm like, okay, I care a little bit, and I have to admit that, but I also have to admit that there's these things that should make you care about it a little bit less and not think you can change the world because this is how the world is, and you're not God. So,
so are you, so are you pulling back from? Did you conceive of yourself as an activist, an atheist activist?
no, never.
Okay,
I
so
just
you
like
never thought of
discussing the
yourself as an activist.
ideas. That's
Yeah,
what
me
I
too.
like.
I'm not an activist at all. I
Yeah, I
just
would
like to.
never call myself that. I would never want to engage in anything like that. I just really like talking about the meat of stuff. It's
Yeah, so
interesting.
well, a lot of people, especially on YouTube, you see them and they're complete activists. So it
Yeah.
makes it much more difficult to pull back from an activist point of view because you've done so many videos and like you're really trying to persuade people. I come to all this stuff with the idea that you can't really persuade people. And the harder, well, you can't persuade people, you can't force them. You had said
Mm-hmm.
earlier you can't really force people into thinking a certain way. And
Yeah.
I like the harder you force, I think the more they resist you.
Mm-hmm.
So gentle persuasion is the way. You got to be
Yeah,
like a
and
safe cracker.
the thing that a lot of people don't also get is that like it's really true what Scott Adams said on Sam Harris's podcast, which is feelings don't care about your facts, and you really need to appeal to people's emotional sensibilities because facts aren't. If facts were good enough, we'd have way more people that are rational and not so fucking emotionally off the chain. Clearly, that's not the case, and we're seeing that, and it's because people are emotionally attached to their ideas. It's their safety blanket. They identify with those things. So when you're trying to ask them questions and battle those things, it's like a personal offense. That's how they're perceiving what that is, which makes it
Yeah.
even more difficult to have the conversation to begin with, right? So like if I was coming at you from the place that I was when we had that original talk, which apparently just slid right off your fucking shoulders, but I'm remembering it now as like
Oh my God, I can't believe you've been dwelling on this.
I'm just remembering being kind of bratty on purpose because I was like, whatever. And then I recognized that thing in me where I'm like, oh, so I was that person who was so married to that idea that I just couldn't break away for it for a minute to like listen to some point that I may have missed to have
That's
made that
funny.
conversation better, right?
Yeah, no, so it's interesting because that I guess we talked about Jordan Peterson in that conversation. You were upset that I like Jordan Peterson and
I was
a
so
lot
upset.
yeah. Well, a lot of what Jordan Peterson talks about, the hierarchy of values, that's like
Yeah.
exactly what we're talking about
Yes,
here.
yes.
Like when you can't, if someone has, if the central core of their identity is something like Christianity, then their hierarchy of values, their highest value is that the Jesus is the Son of God. It's the divinity of Jesus. Now there's no way you can dissuade them from that idea. Like you
Mm-hmm.
might be able to dissuade them from values that are lower down the hierarchy, but I often think about my, like, what drives me, what is my hierarchy of value, and this is straight from Jordan Peterson, saying like a lot of people don't really understand their hierarchy of value, but they
Mm-hmm.
really have one.
Yes, yes.
So I'm curious, what, like, is yours truth? Mine seems definitely to be truth, like factual truth,
Yeah,
material
I
truth.
would agree with that. And it sounds super cheesy to say, right? But like
Oh, it does. It sounds really
like
cheesy.
you're like as soon as you said, "Oh, the highest ethic is truth." That's like the most important thing to me because we know there's gonna be some bullshit that we engage in that is not going to be in line with our highest ethic of truth, right? All we can
Totally.
do is just like strive for the ideal, but ideally, yes, that would be something that would drive my is, right? The truth would be my ought from which to get my is, or my is
the
would, yeah. Well, I
the
fucked it up,
the
but you know what I'm saying.
the truth thing, though, I mean, it's not, it doesn't have as much utility as we think it
Yeah.
does. It's
Yes.
like
Because we
it's
have
almost
this,
a curiosity thing with me. I'm just
yeah,
a curious person.
like the truth works as like maybe a personal thing, but when you are trying to operate within a society that is entirely based on lies and a lot of perception stuff, perception is reality, right? Like everybody's trying to
Totally.
sell
Yes.
everybody a story. We are telling ourselves stories about our lives that aren't necessarily accurate. So like for me, it's such a valuable thing to have friends around who are honest and who will kind of like put me in my place and remind me that I can be a fucknut sometimes, and I offer the same kind of you know thing from my end, and like you just continue to course correct each other. That's the ideal situation because we're all bullshitters. We're all
Yeah.
negotiating with our environment. Some of us are really sucky at it, and like sometimes I'm going to tell myself, "Oh no, this thorny bush does not exist in my environment," and I can just walk right over it and pretend it's not there and pretend I might not fall right the fuck into it as it continues to grow and grow and grow. You know what I mean? Like it's something that it's like the that visual of the fishbowl. When you're in the fishbowl, you can't really see or you can't really
Yeah.
recognize what's inside because it's so familiar to you. But when someone from the outside comes and points things out to you, it's like easier to see. It's
All
helpful.
of all of our psychology is revolves around taking advantage of that. Like that's how we become teams.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
our whole moral ethic becomes invisible to us. This is why a lot of people don't really understand their hierarchy of values. So,
Yeah, like it's kind of like how people will they'll say something in place of like the mechanism via which that result is true. Like they'll have some sort of heuristic that they don't even know they came up with, but they say it. Like I was just talking about this girl with my friend earlier who accidentally seems like she knows a lot because there's
mhm.
deeper truths and things to certain aspects of just being, right? And certain behaviors. But maybe
The
that's too vague right now.
these the you said something interesting about like the world being full of bullshit.
Yeah.
And I noticed Sam Harris a lot will say like he wants a religion that doesn't force you to believe any bullshit. Like that seems to be the ultimate core of his desire, is like some kind of ethic that can unite people, that is completely based in factual reality. I don't know that that's even
I
possible.
don't
Like
even
I'm
think it is. That's just like that
yeah.
again is like an extremist position, right? Because no one is ever going to function on full objectivity. Subjectivity is a thing and it's a necessary thing, and it's like we all need different things for survivability, and those things are going to manifest, and it's just not going to be able to happen. But it would be nice if we could at least agree on some fundamental aspects of reality. You know what I mean? Like that would be kind of cool. Like don't accept something on blind faith. Like there's some reasonable things to not accept on blind faith, like the concept of a god, right? Because you can't see him, he's not there. But if you want to believe in the other stuff, like, okay, there's some force in the universe that makes me behave better, then fine. Like, I guess,
The concept of a god is so useful, and I this is what I wonder because I think a lot about the humanist project, like the secular humanist project. They're basically trying to develop a secular religion, a synthetic religion, and I don't know if you could do it without the
But if it
concept of
looks
God.
like a religion and smells like a
I know
religion, isn't based.
exactly. Is it
See,
basically a
like, I
religion?
think the reason that these things come about is because, like, there's an aspect of tribalism that's operative there. We also want to
Oh
be
yeah.
around people and be with people who think like us. So we have our own safety social net. We have our own place where we're not feeling like pariahs because we're a social creature, right? We need that interaction. We need that tribalism. It's part of our nature. Strength in
Totally.
numbers, that's how you effectively have a healthy progeny as well. You're like reproducing within the tribe or whatever the fuck, right? You have people around you trust and build these communities and relationships with. We all want that, so we have a penchant towards that. We label some of it a religion, we label some of it a cult. And
Mhm.
like, the deal is, maybe everything's on a spectrum. Maybe you could have a secular religion, and maybe it's just like somewhere down the spectrum where it's less crazy in Iron Age and just is modernized. But I mean, like, the reason I'm starting to figure this out slowly. Like, certain words have certain connotations just because of how we've seen them in history, but they're not necessarily that or this. Like, cult can be a good thing. Why can't it be? We just haven't seen one that's great that we're like, yeah, I can get behind that.
Yeah, cult is a weird one
It is a
because
weird one.
yeah, I don't, if people are taking advantage of other people, obviously I'm not in favor of
No,
that,
of
but
course not.
people opt into the thing. So obviously they're getting something out of it in some of these situations. And to define the major world religions as cults, I think it's not really accurate because so many they have to be getting something out of it if they're opting into it at a personal level. Like,
Yeah.
because they can walk away. If you would do the cost benefit analysis yourself, obviously we have done the cost benefit analysis and we've walked away. I think we're more interested, like it's the truth thing. I've walked away because of the truth thing.
Yeah. And religion provides something for people who don't understand they can actually acquire and create it themselves, and that's meaning. Now, a lot of people are empty. They feel like they're hollow, and religion offers this very important thing that we need, which is purpose, meaning. And I mean, it's synthetic. I think it's just a placeholder for like what meaning actually is. But if you're simple-minded, to put it lightly, then that's going to be what you use. That's the device that you're going to use to have that feeling that your life is meaningful. Because ultimately the truth is it's not. It's only meaningful because we are, like, I myself, my life means something to me,
Yeah.
right?
I think it's the tribalism thing too you mentioned is also fascinating to me because I mean, I would love to team up. I love YouTube as a sport, as a like as a debate forum, but
Yeah.
I look at both sides of the atheist theist debate, and I just keep thinking neither of these are basing their worldview on truth. Both of them have just they're both straw manning each other's position to the point where it's
Well, it's
basically
just
both
a dick
sides are
waving
wrong.
contest.
It is. It
Like, it's getting
totally
super
is.
lame. So
It is big time.
that's what the problem with the internet stuff is. It's all like, who can dom on who? And it's like, this is such fucking primitive ape shit, guys. Like, why don't you
Oh yeah.
actually have a discussion about the weird parts where you disagree instead of just keep continuously bringing me the template of your talking points and just giving me those over and over again?
Yeah,
Like,
same debate
try
over
and
and
be
over.
flexible. Like, really address some of the questions that are coming from the other side, because like, we're all just fighting with our feelings about these things, right? Like, we want, ideally the atheist movement would be, well, we're about reason. Well, if you're about reason, then everybody should act reasonably, and everybody still acts like a fucking ape, because that obviously isn't why you're here. And that
Mhm.
kind of like, that reveals people's motives engaging in these things. Oh, you just want to wave your dick, right? Like, people who care to talk about these things, you can tell by the way that they approach the issue that they care about it.
People want to build an audience.
Yeah, that too.
And the easiest way to build an audience is to take a side. It really
It
is.
really is.
Yeah, but when you see that both sides have inadequacies,
Mm-hmm.
it's very difficult to take a side. Sometimes I think, yeah, you should just take a side and fight to change your side, but at the same time, so many of these sides just they want conformity.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want actual open dialogue, or they don't want to question their axioms. And
No.
a lot of them can't question their axioms. I would say that the central axiom of the anti-theist is that factual reality or factual truth will always produce better results. And I think that that's patently false. There's so many situations where that's patently false,
Mm-hmm.
but it's their belief.
Right.
Yeah.
So how do we like? I don't even bother with the question of like, how do I change someone's mind about this anymore? I think the bigger question is how can I have a conversation with somebody that I don't agree with about the difficult aspects of our disagreements without it turning into some sort of fuck show fest where both people are just flinging shit at each other, you know?
Those are fun though.
I agree. So I talked this morning about how I would really love to see like some Sam Harris type person talk to like a Gavin McInnes type person.
What is Gavin McGinnis all about?
I mean, he's a free speech guy, that's for sure, and he's pretty punk rock, and he has like a bit of an attitude problem. He's spicy. He's very smart.
Yeah.
He's been politically inclined for quite some time. Obviously, he's one of the creators of Vice, and I think he is considered to be right or
I
perhaps
don't
alt
think
right.
yeah, I don't think Gavin McGinnis is Vice. Vice is completely left wing,
No,
I
Vice
believe.
used to be owned by Gavin McInnes. He's a creator.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, that's
So
crazy.
that's a Canadian magazine that started ages ago, and it was him and two other guys that started it, and then he sold it off because there were some issues or whatever. But I'm like very loosely and vaguely telling the story. But so he's kind of this. Have you not seen anything of Gavin McInnes's? I
I
imagine not.
have. I've watched some of his comedy videos. He's actually pretty funny.
Yeah,
So,
and he just has this. He's just spicy. You know what I mean? He's like the total opposite of Sam Harris temperament wise, where Sam just likes to keep the peace and he likes to keep it chill. And it's
oh
like,
yeah,
but dude, you have
totally.
so many good things to say. Imagine if you were given imagine being on a platform with somebody who would actually probably really do well to dismantle the way that you're behaving just because he's such a firecracker. Do you have
Yeah.
some firecracker in you, Sam Harris? Like, can you give me some of that? Because like, I love him and he's great, but he gets stale, and I just feel like he's somebody that needs to be heard. Like, you should know who Sam Harris is, but he has to have some kind of edge.
Sam Harris gets angry
Yeah, but
quite a bit
very
though.
rarely though.
We've listened. Sitch and I did a live stream on his podcast with Ezra Klein,
Oh
and
God.
Ezra Klein just got his blood pressure pumping.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, but I think Ezra Klein was pretty much accusing him of racism, which just that's not a comfortable situation to be in.
I'm so tired of the racism accusation at this
Oh, me
point.
too. Oh, me too. God,
It's tiring.
it's the boy who cried racism.
Yeah.
It's everywhere.
It's just so blasé. Like anytime I'm like, oh, they call me racist. Oh, I disengage. Like my brain just goes, nope.
Well, you can't be racist. You're a person of color, right?
Oh,
I
but
mean,
dude, I am
you have the
so
immunity on
racial.
it.
I'm so racial. There's this Chinese accent
Lucky.
that I like to do, and I shit on brown people constantly because who cares? Anybody and everybody. I don't care. If there's something to make fun of, I'm going to make fun of it or poke fun because it's just fun. It's all fun.
I see most of the actual racism that I witness in day-to-day life comes from within communities, like Chinese people being
Oh, yeah.
racist to other Chinese people,
Oh,
or Indian
yeah.
people being racist to other Indian people, like
Yes. Yeah.
not giving them a
And
pass or
dude,
saying, you're acting too white or
yeah, colored people have such an issue with white people. Like, it's really fucking funny. You know what I mean? Like, Indian people who have immigrated here and come
Mhm.
here, I don't know what it is with them. First of all, they all clump in areas and neighborhoods and they all live together. And then they get sour on white people. And it's like, why are you getting so mad? Like, you came to their country. Like, don't be so rude. They have
It
problems with
seemed,
the culture, they have problems with some of the practices, and it's like, but you decided to move into this culture out of your
yeah.
culture. So, what do you
Well,
think's going to happen?
they wanted the economic opportunity, which
Right.
who can blame them? But at the same time, so culture has to go here at some level. So
Exactly. And there are aspects of your culture that prevent where you're coming from advancing, and that's why you're moving here.
yeah.
So you probably should that assimilation stuff is super important.
Do you have a take on the cultural appropriation?
I think it's silly. I think I
Yeah.
for me it's cultural appreciation.
Oh, that's good.
So
I
like
like that.
I'll see, and especially here because a lot of communities mix and stuff, like white girls will wear Indian dress and come to Indian reception parties and stuff, and man, they look gorgeous. Like you could how could you get mad at somebody who wants to try on clothing and like try your food and wear the jewelry and just like play the role for the day? How can you get mad at somebody like that? They're appreciating it. Because let me tell you, it's fucking uncomfortable wearing that Indian garb. It's heavy. It's hot. There's so much bling on it. Like, you want to try that shit on, girl? You go for it. Like, I'm for it. Why would,
Ha-
how anyone can get mad? I don't get.
So are you involved in the Indian community? Do you have
No.
like a okay. Well,
No.
you you put on the garb, it sounds like. I mean, you know
Yeah,
it's
for
heavy.
sure. I mean, I've definitely worn it when I was going to weddings and parties when I was living with my parents, but it's been quite some
Okay.
time since I have. Yeah.
Yeah. You said you had a tough time growing up, and that's
Yeah.
why you were became atheist because like
I
you had
think
really
it was just
conservative parents,
default.
right?
It was just kind of default for me. I never really thought too deeply on the idea. And then in 2011, it was given that name, atheist. So I'm like, oh, there's a label for this. I didn't even know there was a label. Like, that's how new I am to the internet, where I really started getting into YouTube and stuff. 2011.
That's when you became an atheist?
That no, that's when I was exposed to the internet on such a degree that I was like
Oh,
exploring
really?
stuff. Yeah. Not very long.
Yeah, I think I actually for the first time uttered the words, I think I might be an atheist. I think it was like 2007.
Yeah. 2007.
Yeah. Yeah, I was reading it was funny because I was reading the book The God Delusion by Richard Dawkins,
Yeah.
and he was making the arguments that he was making all through that book seemed completely agreeable. The one thing that I was looking for is I thought he took it too far in because he's really an anti-theist in that book. Like he's more than just an atheist.
Yeah.
He's saying that religion is bad, and I kept thinking, well, citation needed.
I
I
say
mean,
religion is bad and religion is okay. That's where I
yeah.
end. Yeah.
Well, it's definitely bad if it's subjugating people.
Well, of
Like
course. But I
that's
mean, by
not
its
good.
very nature, it's kind of subjugating because the overarching force is fear.
Well, like I said, police are subjugating people too, and the fact that they aren't allowed to steal
Yeah,
things.
but that's
I
to
mean,
maintain social order. There's actually a purpose that tangibly improves our world because we all have to live with each other, and stealing is not something.
so how is religion subjugating?
Well, just the idea that there's always punishment involved if you sin,
Right.
right?
So
But I'm
you're
talking about in like the human ways, right? So, like,
so it's a dispute over like you can't have premarital sex and stuff like
yeah,
that.
just the silly stuff like that. Yeah, that stuff.
So you're really just you have a disagreement over what the rules are. You think that the religion subjugates because it says you're going to hell if you do this, and
Right.
you think doing this, whatever it is okay. But
Well,
there are certain places where you agree with the religion, I would
of
assume,
course,
like
but here's the thing
stealing,
though.
lying, murder.
Yes, but those things are advantageous to not do with or without religion. So
Hmm.
they are just beneficial for the organism if they want to survive in this specific environment. So the thing that I don't like is that religion gets to take credit for some very basic things like, hey, don't rape, don't kill, don't steal. Like, I think religion took those things and really made it part of their thing and it blew up. And because it was associated with it so early, I guess it's become something that, oh, this is because of religion that we behave like this, but it obviously
Why is
isn't.
so? Hold on a second, because like lying, cheating, stealing. murder are all very advantageous at the individual level. So why would you think people would be against that?
But
Like obviously,
it's not advantageous
oh, it's
because
very advantageous.
yes, but it works against the goal of social cohesion. So
It
if
does. It
right,
does,
which
but
is something that we need for our well-being. Now, in our current environments with this many people, if that's something that you were doing, it's not good. It's going to have more
you don't
negative
need it for your
consequences.
well-being. You don't need it. You need it for your well-being. But the guy who is not going to get murdered because he's like the big guy that's going to murder everyone,
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and take every like who's the is it a who's the guy that's like half the continent of China or descendants of him because
Oh, Genghis
Genghis is it
Khan.
Genghis Khan? Yeah.
Yes.
So if you're Genghis Khan, then that the morality of Genghis Khan is much better for him if he's able to murder, cheat, steal,
Yeah, but he
and
was going to do
whatnot.
that regardless.
Well, I'm just saying that some people are going to have a morality that
But
benefit
I get it.
everyone is going to have a morality that benefits them.
Yes. So I
Yeah.
conceded earlier to the idea that
Mhm.
like there are just simple-minded people who need that kind of software running in their brain
Mhm.
to not do those things.
Right.
And what was I going to say?
I don't think they're simple minded though. I think
Well, I'm just using that as a term for saying like
right.
they need something to make them not do the what to us are obviously bad things.
Well, I just it's
I'm just saying religion is not to credit for that set, like for the golden rule. Like that's
mhm.
just socially advantageous and a good thing socially. So I'm just trying to remove the responsibility or the credit that religion gets for it. Religion
I'm
took it
trying to
and
figure
used
out why
it.
you don't. Yeah, I'm trying to figure out why you don't give religion the credit though, because it seems like religion is the source of that.
Well, no, because somebody wrote those books and put those rules in it. So obviously it's from a
Those were
human.
religious people though, right?
Yeah, but it's not because of the religion. It's there's people who made that stuff up. So if there's
No, I
people,
agree.
okay, if there's people who made that stuff up, those ideas precede religion. They come before or are a precursor to the existence of the religion. They were just worked in or integrated into it to get people to behave. But the
So what are
idea
you
came from a
calling the
mind.
religion though? Yeah.
I don't
So
know,
what do you
whatever religion in general
yeah.
that has that in its rule book.
I did a debate just recently and this it seemed like the girl was super nice. Her name's Sarah, and she kept saying that she kept labeling all the good things in morality as secular and all the bad things in morality religious. And I kept thinking, why? I don't understand how secular, like some secular moral system takes credit for thou shall not steal, thou shall not kill, when it seems like those things came from religion before they came from secular.
But somebody said those things and they obviously
Yes,
weren't
yes.
religious, right? They created the religion.
Well, I think somebody said, this killing thing is getting out of hand. We got this Genghis Khan guy. He's just wiping us out. Like we need to fix this. I have an idea. Let's hypothesize something bigger than Genghis Khan. And everyone's like, well, but Genghis Khan is pretty big. So our idea has to be bigger than that. I don't
Yeah.
know. How about God?
Yeah.
So I mean, it is trying to put a check on that human nature that wants to. If you have the ability to take advantage of people, people tend to use that
Of
ability.
course.
Yeah.
But that's what organisms do, right? They exploit their environments
But what is the
for the
secular
most.
analog from that? I mean, I guess the secular analog from that is
I just wish the
the,
words secular or religious weren't used, period. It's just a
mhm,
human idea.
yeah.
I don't even understand the need to label it secular or religion. We just say secular, I guess, to distinguish from the idea of religion or that it's just a human idea, just like everything else. So what we do is we clump together ideas that we think work together and then we give them a label like Christianity or Islam or religion altogether or whatever. So we do this thing where we just classify things and we group them together because it's easier for us to kind of think about those things, but it's just human ideas at the end of the day. Singular human ideas that don't necessarily need to be labeled. Like it can just be an idea without a connotation. Maybe that's the way to say it.
Yeah, I understand the reason for it, but I agree with you. in that that reason is not really a good one.
Yeah. Right?
The reason seems like tribalism. It just seems like
Precisely.
so you can say, okay, well, those people have morality wrong. Now let's go in and kill them all.
Yeah, even morality is kind of again, like a lot of the things that are difficult to discuss are difficult to discuss because they are in that gray area. Like
Yes.
it's hard to
Yeah.
have a definitive answer. You know what I mean? It's difficult to have an absolute answer. Some things you might be able to, sure, but I think most complex questions have complex, or most questions that are trying to address huge issues are going to have very complex answers.
Yeah, unsolvable answers
Yeah.
almost. I don't know how, like, how do we get past the abortion debate? Like, that's, it's so maddening that
Well, the thing is, if you give people the choice to have abortions, guess what? It serves both sides of the argument because the people who don't want it don't have to get them, and the people
that's
who
a good
want them
argument.
have the choice to get them. The problem is that one side wants to completely eliminate the choice of it. So,
Mhm.
right, they want to go by whatever their ideology is that makes them think that, a baby is a child, or the fetus is a child. And if you have feelings that the fetus is a child and you think someone's killing a life, well, you're obviously going to have all these fucking feelings that the rest of us got to deal with,
Yeah.
right?
That's the biggest problem
And
right
it's
there.
feelings. Again, feelings don't care about facts. They really don't.
They don't. No, not at all.
And that's what we're contending with a lot of these issues. I wish it
Feelings
was
also.
facts don't care about your feelings. I wish it was like as great as Ben Shapiro or whoever makes it sound that facts don't care about your feelings. But no, like the reality is, feelings really don't give a shit about your facts. They don't care.
Do you listen to any Ben Shapiro or watch
Once in
any?
a while, sometimes I
Yeah.
do, yeah. I try to like keep a variety of shit that I watch because I get bored of listening to people that I agree with all the time. I'm like, I already know my ideas.
I read his book and I thought it was awful. It's funny to me, like I'm in Southern California where I hang out with obviously other people from Southern California, but
Yeah.
everyone, like my close friends, think that I'm a right winger, and it's so infuriating because I'm like,
Because of what?
that's just so crazy. Like I read Ben Shapiro's book, and I can't stand it. Like the I mean I respect conservative arguments, but I don't like I'm pro-choice. I think the pro-choice side. I mean, there that's a tough one because there's there are certain angles that the Democratic Party is going with abortion that is scary, like completely scary.
Yeah,
So
they're I think they're a little off the chain right now, to be completely
yeah,
honest with you.
so maybe just those little differences are why people are thinking that why someone could categorize me as right wing because if you're not completely far left, then all of a sudden you're a right winger.
Well, yeah, so it's this crazy thing that I was saying, like, oh, the left has left me. But Sargon recently did a video and he showed Pew results and he shows like there was a lot more overlap between the red and the blue side. And
Mhm.
like over time, the left has actually moved more towards the left and you're seeing like quite a disparity between the red and the blue. And that's an
Yes.
interesting thing to notice. So what would you say that you are? What, would you classify yourself
I'm
in
a
any way?
centrist. I classify myself as a
You wouldn't
centrist, but
say you're a libertarian?
not really, because I feel like libertarians, you have to feel like taxation is theft, and I don't feel like taxation is theft. So
Yeah, that's a weird one because there are obviously essential services that require
yeah, I
tax
want
funding.
libertarians. Taxation at a certain point is theft. So
But
I,
what
but I
point is
just,
that? I need you to
yeah,
tell.
see, I want to have that conversation, but with
I'm
libertarians,
certainly not like I don't have the knowledge to have that conversation with you, but I'm just curious if you had
like
any ideas.
if taxes were at 10%, like in America, we're getting close to 30% tax bracket for the middle class, which I think is too much myself. So, but if you're being taxed at 50%, if you're being taxed at 70%, yeah, taxation is theft. If you're being taxed at 20% or 10%, I don't know that you could say that's theft, but the libertarians will say any level of taxation is theft. And they have this argument that, well, the free market can do a better job. And I agree with that argument in many places, but there are places where the free market will not do the job or will not do as good a job. So obviously the free market would like to sell you a glass of water for, $700 if they could, right?
Yeah.
So you have to contend with that.
Okay. So a centrist.
Oh no, someone in the chat is saying Adam is like Dave Rubin. Please, no. I like to think I've considered my political opinions more than Dave Rubin. I think Dave Rubin is really just parroting what he hears from other people.
He's a rubber band. He just like
Yeah.
bounces between places.
The abortion debate is difficult for me because I have this really weird way of looking at morality.
Okay.
And I have a very utilitarian way of looking at things. And I think it's pragmatism. It's like pragmatism forces you into this utilitarian perspective where you
Mm-hmm.
want the most happiness, for the most people, the least suffering for the least number of people. And that's really a utilitarian argument. So I tend to want to take the abortion thing and add up the good that's done by it and the bad that's done by it and kind of weigh the scales.
Mm-hmm.
So if and I am not for, I mean, the problem with abortion is you want it done super early. Like I
Yeah.
think the right conflates an embryo and a baby, which
Mm-hmm.
it's like if you can't tell the difference between an embryo and a baby, like how do you have a conversation with that?
But that has to do with their religious beliefs, doesn't it? Because conception happens as soon, or the soul, fucking what is it? The soul is
Yeah,
put
yeah,
into
yeah.
the body as soon as conception happens. So,
Sure, totally. I understand that argument. And I mean, I don't believe that though. So, and also I just feel like, I mean, ask any woman about their feelings of an embryo over a baby. I mean, you have a 9-month investment.
mm-hmm.
Pregnancy is hard work.
Mm-hmm.
If you lose a baby, you're going to feel much worse than if you have a miscarriage in the first week or two,
I mean, they're
right?
kind of, I think, the same because your body's still going to go through those hormonal changes, not having a baby in
Right.
there anymore. So,
Right.
I don't think it's, I mean, a lot, every woman's different. It doesn't affect some
Yeah.
females, but it definitely has more of an effect than it doesn't.
Sure,
Yeah.
totally. And it could be like, let's say having a miscarriage is, an 8 and losing a baby is a 10. I just even if they're and that's a personal subjective feeling, obviously. Some women
Mm-hmm.
would think, a miscarriage is a 1 and a losing a baby is a 10, but I'm just saying that there's never a situation where the miscarriage at 2 weeks and the is more severe than losing a baby after a 9-month pregnancy,
Yeah.
right? That's never going to happen. That's never going to be the case.
Mm.
You're like, maybe. I don't know.
This is,
Never say never,
I
right?
just feel like, don't you feel to some degree that this is just like, it's such a tired subject and it shouldn't even be something we're
Totally.
discussing anymore?
Totally.
Like,
We
people
thank God
think,
you live in Canada, right? Where it's where it's settled.
yes, exactly. I mean, and it's nice, but like the thing that happens with Canada is if there's shit happening in America, dude, America sneezes, Canada catches a cold. That is just
Mhm.
the reality of the cultural bleed between our countries being nuzzled right next up to each other. You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
whatever happens in America pours over. Did you know that when Trump won the presidency, there were people from here in Vancouver, okay, Adam, that went to Trump Tower in Van fucking Coover and protested, "Not my president." Yeah,
What?
idiot. You're
Of
in
course he's
Canada.
not.
Of course he's not your fucking president. What are you talking about? Like, what is the deal? Why do you need to do that? You need to settle the fuck down and clean your room, bro, because you are ignoring your room and you are making messes in other people's rooms with your dumb shit that you do not even belong in. You don't belong in this not my president room.
Not my allies president.
Like, what the hell are you talking about? It's so silly. There's just so many weird things like that happen. So, inevitably, if there is some sort of problem in the United States, there's going to be a problem in Canada, at least to some degree, in some pocket somewhere that will hear about it. Because now we're hearing more about this trans issue in Canada. Like, did you hear about this? What is this girl's name? Jessica.
Yeah, is she in
Oh,
Canada? I thought she's in America.
no,
No, she's in
she's in
Canada. You're
Canada.
right. Yeah. She's taking advantage of the lax laws. She's the
Jessica
she
Yanev, okay? Jessica Yanev is
yeah.
this girl's name. That is a fucking dude.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh my
how?
God.
Oh, don't offend these people. Well, what about me? This is offensive to me that you are trying to tell me that something that is clearly a man is a woman and is trying to get her genitals waxed at a place where they only do female waxing. And what are you trying to convince me that you don't have a set of balls? Like, how far does this go?
Can't she ask a friend to help her out?
Well, it's, no kidding. The thing is, though, right? Like, there's a big difference in waxing female versus male genitals, and a lot of those estheticians they don't train for that. There's very special places to get that
Oh
done
my
because not a
God.
lot of guys get their junk waxed.
I can't imagine it, like the pain of doing it incorrectly.
Well, yeah, it could like rip your sack skin off. I
Yeah,
mean,
oh my
it's
God.
not. It's not worth the risk of even trying
You
to appease somebody because I'm
you
transgender.
think she's trying to get a free sex change operation out of the deal?
Oh
You
my
think that's what's
god.
going on?
It's ridiculous, you know?
Like you're
It's
gonna get it waxed off?
yeah.
Is that
But
what's
here's
going
the
on
deal.
here? Like,
So,
oops,
yeah, a lot of
now I am a
things
female.
a lot of things came into fruition with the story. So like this guy doesn't like immigrants. So he was specifically going to places.
Really?
Yes, he was specifically
Oh
going
my
to places
God.
with like colored or ethnic women to request these services they don't do so that he could fucking
Oh
cause some
my
sort of problem. Like it's
God.
so scandalous.
He's like the right wing trans person.
Oh my god, it's just like these characters are popping up and it's like you don't want to give them any kind of attention because they're obviously the kind of people who don't care what kind of attention you're giving them. They just want
They
attention.
want the attention.
That's
Yeah,
it.
exactly.
So now there's this problem. And like there's clear bullshit with Twitter where like that girl Lindsay Shepherd, you heard about her, right? She's a
Yeah.
Canadian activist. So she
Yeah.
just got banned off Twitter because that Jessica Yanev person said something to her about her inability to reproduce because she has some sort of ovarian issue or something that prevents her from
Mhm.
reproducing the way a normal woman would. So
Lindsay Shepherd just had a baby, actually.
okay, well, that's good.
Yeah.
But I think there's some issue there that Jessica Yanev made a comment about. And then Lindsay Shepherd responded with something like, oh, you're a man, you're a fat, ugly man, and got banned off Twitter.
Yeah, I know.
And
It's
it's like,
bad.
well, there's a clear disparity here between, like, did you see that Joe Rogan experience with Jack Dorsey and shit?
Yeah.
Right? Where
Yes.
they're
I
saying,
agree.
oh, like
100%.
social media is a human right. Okay, so you're just taking people's human rights away because you're banning people that you feel like disagree with your sensibilities without even paying mind to the fact that they're being total cunts the other way around. So can people banter equally back and forth or only if they agree with you?
No, one-way banter
Yeah,
only.
it's so
Come on. People are fragile. You understand this?
yeah, and I don't think protecting anybody is particularly going to increase the sum total of resilience in society for
We have to
such
get the
stupid
number of
shit.
trans people up. We really do. We want 40% by 2021.
Don't worry, it's going to happen because they're pumping kids full of hormones and
Oh, I know.
they think that
Scary.
8-year-olds are equipped to deal with the kind of decision that is going to completely fucking change their lives and they don't even know how. Because you can't when there's a developing brain and your hormones are leveling out over the years just think you're going to know what's going to happen when it's so wild card.
Wow, Amy, you sound like a right winger. You
I
sound like a
know.
right winger too.
I know. I think I am a little bit like
How this is what I don't get. Like, how can you classify like someone with your opinion as right wing when you're really? It's almost like you're a bleeding heart for these kids that are being dosed up with drugs.
it's a perspective issue. I mean, I don't know how else to say it, but there's obviously like a people don't seem to care that there's science behind these things, right? Like, and
Yeah,
I'm no
totally.
fucking genius. I can understand something from a very basic aspect and apply that across anything that's kind of happening and like look at those things juxtaposed and see like there's discrepancies. It's all about discrepancies. There's always going to be some, but like the wider the gap, the more necessary it is to pay attention to it and
They
fix
they
it.
they talk about the hormone blockers.
Hmm.
So the hormone blockers are blocking certain hormones, but the thing that I always wonder is, like, is the body going to continually produce those hormones? I feel like there's a point in your development where the body is putting out those hormones that you can block, but then they talk about it like it's reversible. Like if you stop blocking them, the hormones will still be there. But I don't think that's how it works. I think like your body stops producing those
It
levels.
will slow
And when you
down.
stop
The
yeah,
rates will
you stop
decrease.
blocking them and they're no longer there to be received. They're no longer being produced. It's such a
But
nightmare
there's
scenario.
also like a natural inclination that your body has to produce certain things. So if you remove that block, it's possible that it can like the rate will increase of those hormones being
Mhm.
produced, but it might affect the rate at
Oh,
which
that's
those
yeah.
right. So that'll obviously produce a change because like even the most minimal hormonal changes can have such a grand effect. And that's in conjunction with other hormones that are acting because they all kind of act on each other. It's a very like it's such a confusing maze of integration. And it's so interesting that people think they know better to be able to manipulate like just how intricate those god, what was the word I just used, was integrations are. And it's unfortunate. Like there should be no solid answers about these things at all because
They
they're so complex and you just don't know how the combination of this certain thing or that certain thing is going to produce what results. You just don't know.
yeah, we understand there's this window of opportunity to teach people language. Like if you learn a language later in life, you're going to have an accent. If you learn the language, I don't know the actual years, but there's a certain window when you're young that the mind just like it's like a sponge for language. I don't know how you can't make the same analogy with the sexual development. Like there's a probably a window for you to go through puberty, and if you try to push it back, you're just taking so much away from those people. It's like not it's basically like not teaching them a language and then saying, "Oh, well, we don't know if we want to teach them, you know, English or Spanish, so we'll just wait until they're 14 and then we'll let them pick what language they want to learn." They're not going to learn either language very good if you keep them from learning language till they're 14.
Yeah, it's just
So
all
sad.
yeah.
It's like
This
child abuse.
yeah, I think it's also just very inappropriate to think that someone as young as like 8, 9, 10, 11, 12
Oh my
has
God.
the mental capacity to make such a critical decision. Like they don't even first of all, their parents don't even understand what they're about to do. They don't understand that like the intricate mechanisms. Do doctors barely do. They just know that there are intricate mechanisms. They can't fully speak to like how those integrations cause issues. So, I don't know. Again, it's all just silly, short-sighted, appealing to people's emotions bullshit.
It's the way end of the individual spectrum
Yeah.
that when parents don't even want to make any decisions for their children. Like they actually feel uncomfortable making decisions for their children. Like that's such a weird predicament to be in. Like if you can't make decisions for your children, I don't know if you should be having
Then
children.
don't have
Jeez.
children because
Yeah, exactly.
it just seems so obvious, but it's weird. Oh, well, I don't want to identify my child as any gender when they're born because they should
I
have that
know.
choice. Like,
I know.
well, shouldn't they have the choice of whether they should or should not or wanted or didn't want to come out of your vagina? Well, there's a reason they can't make that choice, and that's why
Yeah,
you're making
exactly.
it. So people just want to abdicate responsibility. They're
Oh,
always trying to
exactly.
push it off to somebody else, and it's like, dude, can you please just accept responsibility for this thing that you did so you can handle it properly? Can we do that?
I wonder if they're afraid of making the wrong decision. I wonder if that's what's
But if they're
the
afraid to make the
problem is.
wrong decision, they're already making the wrong decision because they're afraid. Like, you can't
Yeah,
be afraid,
making no decision is making a decision, or
right?
like it or not.
Exactly. Precisely. Well, good.
Yeah.
I hope I wasn't angry to you this time.
I'm gonna go back and listen to that because I don't remember you being angry at
I
all.
think I'm going to have to too. I think I was having fun, but I definitely feel like I might have been coming from a cuntier place. And
No, not at all, man. I
I'm
think I
I'm just reflective now. And I think what I would like to do is to be able to exercise that muscle, right? And it's also like kind of embarrassing to be like, "Oh my god, I was so strong on this position and now I'm like wavering," because people see that as weakness, right? People see like grappling ideas and changing your mind. Here's the thing about people. They want you to change your mind, but if you don't change it the way they want you to change it, they're going to call you fucking weak about it. And it's like, no, that's your weakness, my friend. Like, I'm not going to admit that I'm fully 100 on this grasping reality thing, but like, if I want to be reasonable,
yeah.
you realize some things are just kind of floating in a space that isn't right or left or black or white. And like, that's kind of where the interesting stuff and content is too, right? Sometimes I don't know, and exploring I don't know is interesting. Sometimes not having an absolute answer is interesting. It's more fun. There's more to work with.
Yeah, you just tell them when the evidence changes, I change my mind. What
Yeah.
do you do? Because
Mm-hmm.
I feel like a lot of the, especially the anti-theist community, is just ignoring the evidence.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's so frustrating to me. If your whole central premise of your the thing that you identify strongest with is, I accept things based on evidence, and
Mm-hmm.
then you throw evidence out when it disagrees with this this hatred you have for religion, then
Mm-hmm. But
I
that
don't think you can
is
say that
the
anymore.
place where I was, is like once you're in that position, everything about the opposing side is wrong and stupid and ridiculous and totally has no utility.
Yeah.
But if you're gonna, like, what I've tried to do is kind of move into the middle about it, and it's like you have to recognize, if you care about truth, Adam friended,
Yeah.
you have to care about the positive and practical ways that this or that has been applied to create some good results. And you just cannot deny it. Like, the truth is complex and interesting and, it's stranger than fiction, as they like to say. And it
Were
is.
there were there any videos or books or anything that chinked away at this?
I think it's just I'm going to say I did read Maps of Meaning, Jordan Peterson's book.
Did you really?
I
Oh
did.
my God, I couldn't finish that
I
book.
could
If you
not. I got three-quarters of the way through, Adam, and it was just like such a fucking headache because he's overly redundant for me.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And I felt like, okay, I get what you're trying to illustrate to me. I don't need to finish the whole book. And I honestly think he didn't do a good job of like tying it all together. But
No,
the
not at all.
central premise that there are very clear psychological indices or indications that
Mm.
come from seeing the similarities across all stories across civilizations that you cannot ignore. Like, there's something
Yes.
that it's trying to tell you. So that's the truth that he's trying to illustrate. The reason him and Sam had a difficulty talking about it is because, yes, they are kind of different. You know what I mean? They're talking in totally separate arenas. Like, there's the subjective arena, which he was kind of coming from, and trying to draw some sort of objectivity from that kind of subjective experiences based on similarities. And then there's Sam, who's strictly objective. Like, why even consider the meta, right? Like,
Sam doesn't want to admit that if you've lost a loved one and you can believe that you're going to be reunited with that loved one in the afterlife, that can be a healthy that can give you the strength to go on, and that's actually a biological advantage. It seems logical that evolution would seize on that. Like, Sam Harris is not in a position to admit that believing untrue things can be beneficial.
yeah, and that's something that I touched on with you in the beginning, right? Is that there is
Yeah,
some
totally.
level of delusion that we need to operate under if we want to achieve things. It's just true. You can't.
Yes, totally.
And I think so in the same way that extremists express their positions in the most extreme way to kind of like, I think it's just what they do. I think he's in that same arena where he's like, no, it's not useful or doesn't have utility at all, because that's kind of where he wants to get people, to get them to maybe think that their achievement, as opposed to the delusion of achieving said thing, is necessary as a device to get to the goal. He just wants to be able to use reason and logic to get to that goal. And I think that it's going to take a much longer time. And I certainly think it's advantageous and ideal to get people on that level. But I think I'm on the side of like just a dash of delusion, maybe the right way to go.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm a human
Not too
being
much.
after all, you
A
know what I
dash
mean?
of delusion.
Just a dash. And I'm a human being. I know I'm going to need to use psychological tricks and use things that are going to make me do something by thinking it's going to be something else and tricking myself so that I put myself through whatever I need to get to that goal.
Yeah, you listen to Scott Adams too, so that's like huge
Just with
Scott Adams.
well, but just with Sam. I think
Oh,
like
okay.
yeah, I didn't listen to him very much. It's just like there are certain aspects of psychology and the way that it works that you can't deny. Again, if you really want to be honest about how these things work.
Yeah, yeah. We
And
we encode things in narrative stories, and those stories are easier to
exactly.
remember. I mean,
Yes.
even when people do these memory challenges, they create a story that allows them to remember long chains of numbers because it takes
Yes.
advantage of the architecture of the brain. So,
Yeah, and the stories we tell ourselves matter. And some people tell themselves that having this or this as a part of their story is what helps their story along. And it's like, can you
well,
really hate?
if you want to read, there's a really good book by Stephen Asma. He's a
Asthma?
atheist. Yeah, I think it's Asma, Asam, I think.
Okay.
Asm. But he wrote a book that I feel like it's what Jordan Peterson was going for with Maps of Meaning, but didn't quite make it.
Okay.
Like this book is completely clear. It's called Why We Need Religion. It's written from an atheist perspective. Like he starts off the book talking about how he doesn't believe any religion is true and that he's sided with Dawkins and Dennett and Harris and all those
But
people. And
it's the
he's
idea of religion that he's talking about. Just like a set of
yeah,
a set of
totally,
organized principles with
totally.
hierarchies, with a system. That is exactly how you kind of want to run your life, right? You want to have routines. You want to have things you do. You can use the language of temple and ritual and all the religious language to describe processes that we already do in our lives. So like religion is just a way of saying like organize, hierarchy. It just describes a concept or a means by which to create a concept to organize life and reality.
Yeah.
It's
He goes
just
to in the book he goes to Ken Ham's creationist.
oh
Uh
my god, have you gone there?
I haven't, but the book made me kind of want to go there because oh God, the chapter is so hilarious. It is so funny.
I
But
feel like you would have so much fun at the
I know,
Creationist
yeah.
Museum.
When you look at it, I mean, I don't when you look at it from like a scientific perspective, it all just completely makes sense. So many of the anti-theists, I can see them just like pounding their desk going, they just can't understand how people can believe these untrue things. And there's so many rational reasons why believing those untrue things is it's just useful that obviously they get a lot out of it.
So that was another reason, I guess, or where I guess Jordan Peterson kind of failed to illustrate. Like, I think he was trying to say there's utility in those things, but I think Sam was pushing back hard against the idea that there's utility
Yes.
for those things, and I think
Yes.
that that's it's just hard to deny that there is obvious utility. It just really
Yeah.
is. Like, part of me still wants to be like, oh fuck you, there's no utility, but obviously there's evidence in the world of that.
Yeah.
So how
Yes.
can you deny when there's evidence for something?
You were talking about the delusion thing.
Yeah.
There's one example that he points to in the book of this guy who was in a civil war and they wear some Buddhist charm around their neck that makes them impervious to bullets. Like it basically makes them bulletproof.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy's convinced that he's completely bulletproof. And he's like, well, I don't know if I believe that, but I can understand the advantage of being in a battle and believing you're bulletproof.
Yeah.
You might calm you down quite a bit. You might actually do a better job, and that might facilitate your survival. So there's just one example. There's
Mm-hmm.
so many examples in the book of where believing untrue things is just the amazing utility in it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Yep, it certainly is helpful, and it's weird to be in that spot now, myself, just because
Well,
like
you won't be liked. You'll be
for
completely
sure.
unliked. Let me
No,
let me
oh, you're
let me
weak.
warn you.
Oh, you're not on this side or that. Oh, you're a
Yeah.
bitch. It's like, no, actually, that's like the most difficult thing to grasp is the thing that pulls you in both directions for whatever reason, you know? You're
Yeah.
like in the middle of a tug of war when you can't give a definitive answer because then your brain is like there's a little bit of stress attached to that, you know what I mean? Not having a definitive answer is kind of stressful cognitively, it's
Yeah, big
taxing
time.
cognitively. So it's much easier to resign yourself to the extreme end of this or that because then you
Yeah.
don't have to think anymore, you don't have to be fluid or flexible and try and operate within that gray area where the fucking two opposite ideas meet and clash.
That's another thing that just completely triggers me.
Yeah.
Like, well, the anti-theist side is they're so adamant about wanting the religious side to say I don't know. They want
Mm-hmm.
them to take the position that I don't know. But
Mm-hmm.
at the same time, the anti-theist side is so terrified of taking the I don't know
But
position.
I
Like
don't know on God or I don't know on the writings because I would say that it's pretty easy
the
to say the
the
writings are bullshit, right? Because humans wrote them.
totally, totally.
Okay.
But the question though is on the utility of
Ah, the
religion.
utility. Yes. Okay.
Yeah. So I keep saying, my position it has been for a long time. I don't know on the utility. But in order for us to have a definitive answer on the utility, we really have to do an accurate cost benefit analysis.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the anti-theist side will constantly say, we don't need to do a cost benefit analysis because there is no utility of religion
Yeah.
and there
Yeah.
and therefore, but it's a very much, it's not an I don't know position. It's a I know definitely religion is evil and the world would be hearts and unicorns if religion was gone. Now, when you press them on this, a lot of times they'll backpedal and say, oh, well, I never said that
I
the
think that
world
was
would
something
be,
I said to you, wasn't it?
maybe,
I'm
yeah, that'd
pretty
be
sure it
funny.
was. The world would be so much better without religion. No,
Yeah,
not right now.
exactly.
Maybe in the future, but I can't say that right now. If we just sucked religion out, I think it would leave a lot of people fucking confused, and we don't want that.
Well, and a lot of people that are really people who struggle. Like I've said this in a couple of live streams, but if you want to go down and preach atheism at the college, that's fine. That's like fun. But go try to preach it at the hospital where people are really
Yeah.
suffering.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's that's where it's just like you have to be a pretty callous person to be able to go to the hospital and say, guess what? Not
Yeah.
only are you losing your spouse, but you're never going to see him again. And you just need to man up. You need
But
to
that's what I
like
mean by like
get
there
real.
is a social environment that we need to be able to operate within, and if that's what we're going to do, and social intelligence I think is really important, and
Totally.
it's more
Yeah.
important than being an IQ grandstander, if you will, you know what I mean? Like, I'm this smart because I believe this. Okay, well, asshole, is that going to help you operate within the social environment that we all find ourselves in that we cannot escape? Fucking no. But
Some
discuss the ideas. That's great. But like, if you're gonna go out in the world, like, no fucking atheist would go to the hospital and try and say that shit to someone.
totally.
And
Totally.
like, if they're saying they are, put your money where your mouth is. Go fucking do it. I dare you, because you're not
Call
going
no,
to.
don't dare them because there are people that will do. Call sign
Psychos,
hotel.
dude.
Yeah.
Psychos.
Call sign hotel. One of your moderators in the chat says, when do non-religious people go to the hospital though? And I agree. They don't go to the hospital. But what I'm saying is sooner or later, all of us are going to end up in a hospital. And I mean, if you abandon religion early on, you're basically doing a cost benefit analysis. You're saying that I won't need this, but
Yeah.
like the whole idea behind Jordan Peterson is like the baseline condition of life is something like unbearable suffering, that sooner or later that suffering will come for you.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not embedded in a community that is prepared for that suffering,
Mm-hmm.
then what are you going to do? And I think a lot of times we aren't giving people both sides of the argument.
Mm-hmm.
We're completely straw manning the other side of the argument, and
Right.
it's not healthy. Like
Mm-mm.
you yourself, you've gone further, Amy, than most people, because a lot of anti-theists are not willing to admit that religious people have better health outcomes. Like asthma goes into this in the book, where he talks about the reason the health outcomes are better is because, like, you see these bumper stickers, I have God as my co-pilot. Well, that's got to be very secure.
Yeah,
Like, I
yeah.
wish I had something like God as my co-pilot. I'm like a mess. Are
I
you
mean, it
kidding me?
doesn't matter what you believe about God. The point is that person who has that belief has their own conception of God that they're using to make them feel the way that they feel, that they can just put their life on that force or
Yeah.
idea.
Well, it's lowering their cortisol levels. I mean, I think we can test that empirically.
Yeah. And
Less
again,
stress.
that's something that the community does too. And though it sounds weird, like when you're on the other side of the argument and then you come back and you're kind of in the middle, it sounds like you're so much for religion, and that's one thing that I kind of like don't like
Yeah.
about it, is that now I'm starting to sound like I'm pro religion. I'm certainly not. I'm still of the anti-theist, atheist mindset. I'm just, why can't we approach these things reasonably? I want to get along with people, and I think it would be interesting to not try and come at someone who I want to have this conversation with potentially in the future in such a douchey way, because I'm actually interested in the ideas, you
Yeah,
know?
the theists I see them trying to convert me, and that's a little uncomfortable, but I mean, I know their heart is in the right place. Like, if you had a belief that someone was going to, burn in hell, or their soul was on the line, or things like that, you would act differently. So,
Yeah.
but the what that does in the world is what we have to really keep conscious of, and always be looking at. So,
Yeah. So do you remember there was like an analogy that Peterson used in the Maps of Meaning where he was talking about think of a room and like an object as an infant in that room. Like that
mhm.
object is something that your mind now has to negotiate with. So
Yeah,
think of the idea, right? You hold a value or belief. That value you were talking about that we don't necessarily understand or aren't connected with on a deeper level, that is an object in that room. Now, in order to act on that value, you have to be aware of its existence. So, to some degree, you are. And then you're going to navigate and act based on that value. And that's where the beliefs are born from, to help you negotiate with whatever that value is. So, if you haven't assessed it on a deeper level, you might just employ something as simple as religion, because that's the easiest answer to anything that may involve, say, I don't know, truth or not hurting people or whatever it is. And now all your beliefs are going to be in line with that object of the
yeah.
value object, right? And your behaviors are going to be born of those beliefs. So there's like a chain there that he tries to describe. And it's like, it's just a part of thinking. You, in order to act in the world, you have to believe certain things about your environment.
Yeah, we
So,
also that's where the ideas that he puts forward in that book are the strongest. The objects, as opposed to, like, they're how does he put it? Like, you're right on when he's talking about objects having value. Like, we don't think of things in materialist terms; we think of them in narrative terms.
yes.
Like, I'm looking at all the objects on my desk, and I'm thinking, yeah, each of them have a certain value in my mind. Very low, obviously.
Yeah.
People obviously have higher values. So, yeah, it's something we do. We can't help but do it.
Yeah. So what else? I want to hear about this YouTube thing that you have going on with your demonetization. Please tell me, because YouTube has been such suck lately.
Well, YouTube is on your side in hating Jordan Peterson, I think.
Yeah,
So,
apparently they called him a Nazi. Same with Ben
I
Shapiro,
know.
of
I
all
know.
fucking people.
So, evidently, I'm running a channel that leans a little hard right for YouTube. So, just because I did a lot of Jordan Peterson commentary. Now, I mean, I thought that it was a little conspiratorial, that really people are saying this about YouTube, but now I'm wondering if it's actually true,
Mm-hmm.
especially since that thing came out where they actually called Jordan Peterson and Ben Shapiro Nazis, because I had a lot of commentary on Jordan Peterson. I think that might have been why my channel got demonetized, but I'm deleting a lot of videos. I don't necessarily know what I'm supposed to delete. And they did a weird thing. They I'll just walk you through it in case you're ever in this situation. So they demonetized my channel by unplugging AdSense. So I can't get super chats, I can't get anything. Like
Wow.
there's no monetization at all. They said I could reapply in 30 days. And they hit me with this thing called reused content where they said I don't necessarily have the copyright to some of the stuff. And I said, well, it's in fair use and I do commentary in all my videos.
Mm-hmm.
So, but they were really unclear. I talked to some other YouTubers and they said the format that I was doing, they don't like where you do the commentary before the clip and then you play the whole clip interrupted. I thought that was a better way to do it. So I deleted a lot of those videos and I reapplied for monetization. And they sent me back a thing saying, yeah, we don't really have enough information to know whether or not you're going to monetize.
Mm-hmm.
We can monetize. Yeah. So it put me in this total limbo. They're like, just keep uploading content. And I'm thinking, well, I'm not going to upload content if my channel's not monetized because my other channel is monetized. So I thought I'd just upload content there.
Mm-hmm.
So that took a long time, like months went by. And I guess they do a second review where they do a more detailed review.
Mm-hmm.
And that second review, they finally kicked me back almost a month ago now and said, okay, we're not going to monetize your channel. You can make changes and reapply in 30 days. So I deleted a bunch of other videos. I mean, I've probably deleted 100 videos and I'm just going to reapply here in a few days and see
Mm-hmm.
what happens. If they usually get back to you real quick on the first review, like the first review only took like 3 days and they either approve you or say deny you and you go to the second review process. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to throw it back to them. I have one video left that's Jordan Peterson related that has like 3.5 million views. So I don't want to delete it
Mm-hmm.
because that helps your channel. If you have viral videos on your channel, it helps your channel
Of
with the
course, I would
algorithm.
imagine
Yeah.
it does.
So
Yeah.
so I'm going to apply for monetization. That if they get back to me in 3 days and say, you're going to the second review,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to delete the 3 million view, which is funny. I've already done a video where I delete a video with almost 2 million views because
Mm-hmm.
it's a little painful. I don't know if you've ever deleted a video with,
I've never had that many views,
yeah,
but
it's
that would suck.
painful.
That would suck, though.
It's painful. You're like, huh, I really captured something with this video.
Yeah, that's so sad. Like, I think it's unfortunate that like the creators are the reason the platform's successful, right? But I mean, it's mostly, I guess, the popular videos are like fucking cat videos and stupid shit.
Well, they
So,
see the video that has 3.5 million views. There's two ways that you can look at that video, and
hmm,
I understand both perspectives. One side, they hate Jordan Peterson. They think it's just a bunch of Jordan Peterson clips that
hmm,
I I basically downloaded popular Jordan Peterson videos and did like stitch them together in the quickest possible way,
hmm,
and then I'm just a copyright infringer looking to make a quick buck, right?
hmm,
And then there's what I actually did. Like I poured through hours and hours of Jordan Peterson footage because I was doing commentary on Jordan Peterson every day,
hmm,
and I was setting aside the best moments. And I also did these kick-ass transitions that almost everyone in the comment section was commenting on, that are they're like comedy transitions
yeah,
where Jordan Peterson like comes out with sunglasses on or something like that. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah, yeah.
they're fun. They're totally fun. I did one that had him with laser vision.
Hmm.
So I
That's
did
a
all
good thing,
those.
huh? You like that
Yeah,
laser vision
totally.
imagery?
That's my thing. Yeah. So I did all those transitions and I tried to tell him, these are transitions that I made myself. Like not everyone could do this. This
Hmm.
is this is me raising the value of this content, but they don't see it that way,
I can't
they
believe
don't care.
there was an issue because if there's commentary, that should just be covered under fair use, no?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, it's all in some nebulous area. If YouTube doesn't like Jordan Peterson, they can just shut you down.
Yeah, it's kind of lame. They're total weak bitches. I don't like that shit.
Jordan Peterson actually took one of my videos off of my, because I have a archive channel now. I try to upload this stuff because people would give me a hard time for deleting all these videos.
Mm-hmm.
Jordan Peterson took one of the videos off my archive channel and just uploaded it to his
Are you
channel.
serious?
Yeah, it's got my Think Club logo in there and my outro and all that
Oh,
stuff.
that's kind of cool.
I was like, oh well,
Oh
it is
well.
technically his content.
I
Share
mean,
the wealth.
like, wouldn't you be able to strike that though? No.
Nah, I would never do that.
No. I
All
mean,
of
it's a
Jordan
douchey thing to
Peterson's
do.
stuff is one of the reasons why Jordan Peterson is so big is all of his stuff is fair use. He's got it all marked Creative Commons, like you can reuse that stuff as much
Yeah.
as you want.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what's great about it. I remember I used to watch a lot of his lectures. I enjoyed some of them.
Yeah, I did. I deleted it now, but I mirrored your video when you came back from, because you saw the Jordan Peterson Sam Harris debate.
I did.
Yeah, and you came back and you were like,
I
you
was just
just
so bothered by him.
I I mirrored that video on my channel, try to send some traffic your way,
Mm-hmm.
obviously.
No,
And
thanks.
a lot of people gained a lot of respect for me because a lot of people, whenever anyone does Jordan Peterson clips, they think, you're just some Jordan Peterson sycophant.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh my God, I can't believe you posted this because it's so negative towards Jordan Peterson. I'm
You
like,
also
well,
posted the worst of the three because the first one I had got home, I was fairly stoned afterwards, and I was like,
yeah.
like I just got home in the middle of the night, and then I watched it again, and then I
It was
watched it
honest
again.
though. It was so heartfelt. I
Yeah,
thought it was good.
I was so lit that night because I was just so. There's something about like trying to dress up what you're saying so much that I find so deceptive. And I like it was really getting to me because there's such a huge contrast in his temperament versus Sam Harris's. And I think that that disparity makes my dislike for him even bigger just because
Yeah.
there's such a disparity, right? So
Well, you like Sam Harris and
I
you feel
do.
like he's attacking you. I like
But
Sam Harris too.
but
Everyone,
I'm getting a little sick of his shit too. So I mean,
really?
yeah, and it's just like there has to be some creative element to what you're doing a little bit if you're in the public.
Oh
And
man, we're
I
change
just
junkies, aren't we?
yeah, I just feel like something needs to be different. And like people who should be heard should be trying to do it in different ways, not just conform to this, hitting the same beat over and over again. Like who gets boring if they hit the same comedians get so fucking boring when they hit the
Totally.
same comedic beat over and over. You're like, dude, you're not creative at all. Like
You have to reinvent yourself.
yeah, exactly. So I think that like him being a little bit edgier or whatever would be great because he already has the intellectual shit and the ideas down pat. So go talk to someone like Gavin McInnes, who's gonna be like a bit of a wild card, and I want to see how your personalities interact with each other. What
I
is
watch I watch every Sam Harris podcast. I'm assuming you do the same, right?
I have like 5 or 6 to catch up on now.
Oh, really? The
Yes.
one with Ricky Gervais is so
I
good.
heard it was
Oh,
quite good.
so
I
good.
will listen
Yeah.
to that for sure.
Ricky Gervais is the best. He
Yeah.
has a very almost like he has more of a Jordan Peterson outlook on religion. Like he said, like religion is the free babysitter, which is
Hmm.
exactly right.
Yeah, it is a great analogy.
Like it's totally exactly right. That
Hmm.
Stephen Azima guy,
Hmm.
God, I wish I knew I was pronouncing his name right. I did a debate and I used his book in the debate, and he actually responded on Twitter. So now I feel bad that I'm not getting his name right,
That's okay. It happens.
but he in the book he makes such reasonable arguments, and the same argument that Ricky Gervais makes is basically in the book, and he puts all the scientific studies behind it. So it's, I guess Ricky Gervais just knows it intuitively, but
Mm.
scientifically it's correct, and that puts Sam Harris on the wrong side of the science, which is a little disheartening.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe I'm not willing to let go of the idea that he's not doing, or like to hold on to the idea that he's not maybe doing the best job at like kind of integrating ideas. Because that's what it
Yeah,
is, right? It like, there's some aspects of this that are correct, and there's aspects of this that are correct. Obviously, there's has to be some integration if both results are being produced, right? Like,
He's Sam Harris is trying to sell Buddhism as a secular religion to Western
But
audiences.
it's not
And
Buddhism. It's just the mechanisms behind meditation. Again, meditation is something that maybe is associated with Buddhism for good reasons, but
mhm,
there is something objectively good about the practice of meditation that's good for your brain. That's been empirically shown to like increase white matter and all these other things that are structurally that would structurally show you that it causes improvements to some degree.
yeah.
So that's what he's trying to bridge the gap between like the actual practice and like, you know, kind of using some sort of spiritual language to build the bridge to get there, because people
So
obviously we like that kind of language on the whole
may,
in some way.
may, maybe I don't know if you saw this podcast, but he had a podcast with a Buddhist skeptic recently, which
Mm.
was super interesting too, because the guy was just not buying any of what Sam was selling on the Buddhism stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it's super interesting the way that he wants Buddhism to be this secular religion, but the Why We Need Religion book, he knocks down a lot of the arguments that Sam Harris is making. There is an aspect of Buddhism that's very secular, like there's no supernatural or anything like that. But the Buddhists on the ground say that they're basically their parishioners would never buy that kind of Buddhism, and that they have to bring in all the supernatural stuff, otherwise they would all starve to death. So it's pretty funny. It's
Yeah.
pretty funny. Yeah.
Well, I think just in general we kind of have a penchant towards magical thinking.
Yeah, it's useful. It's definitely useful.
Yeah, it is. And it like even like metaphors and that kind of stuff are kind of useful to describe aspects of reality. It's just the degree to which those things are employed and used that can kind of blur the lines a little bit and either make it a little bit too much woo peddliness, or like I don't like the idea of it being woo peddly, or the idea that there's absolutely nothing to it all. Like clearly there's somewhere.
He tells this story in the book that I was wanting to do a video on it just because it's this really short excerpt and it's so moving. But there's this kid who his dad dies when he's super young and he just can't deal with it. And
Mm-hmm.
he decides that he is going to build a time machine.
Oh wow.
And he has to completely keep it a secret from anyone. But he's taking all these, like he's really studying physics and whatnot. And he actually, I don't know if he wins a Nobel Prize for physics, but he develops some kind of machine that makes particles travel backwards in time.
Mm-hmm.
And he's recognized in physics about this. And the whole thing is based on this magical thinking, like him constantly imagining the relationship that he's going to have with his dad when he finally is able to go back in time and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's such a moving story, but he makes the argument that even people who are very secular still use magical
A
thinking to their
dash of
advantage.
delusion.
Yeah,
Don't
totally,
forget.
totally.
We all need that shit. And like it's
Yeah,
just weird to come to terms with, right? Because you want to like me, I'm like I just want to think I'm like totally rational. I want to think that I come at everything without any kind of magic behind it or any kind of anything, but it's not true. You can't honestly try and assess yourself and not think, yo, remember that dumb thing I told myself yesterday to get through this fucking work day that has been killing my brain? That was a total lie. That was totally bullshit. But
yeah,
it worked. It had
it
utility.
totally
It got
worked.
me through
Yeah,
the day.
exactly.
You know what I mean? Like,
This is what affirmations are.
yeah,
And people
exactly.
swear by that stuff. It's magical thinking all the way.
It's a form of priming. So they use this in psychological experiments when they want
Yes.
to for with control groups and stuff, right? They prime you. So there might be 6 people who you think are running an experiment who are actually just randos in lab coats, but because you associate authority with that concept, they're priming you to think that you're being tested by these people over something that they're totally not even testing you for, or what they've told
Yep.
you they're testing you for, right? Like there are such easy ways to trick the mind, and we exploit those things for experimental purposes. And the reason we can is because that's just an operative aspect of our cognition. Like it's
Yeah.
just part of the game.
But
So
rationalists will deny that.
And
they're
it's
literally forced to
weird.
deny that science.
It's kind of weird though to deny. It's odd to deny that science because you how can you, like Sam Harris talks about, just using him as an example, he talks about these ideas of priming. He's talked about that notion before. He is a neuroscientist. He understands some of the things that are involved in experiments of psychology. So like for his purposes in this sense, it almost feels like he circumnavigates it. Like, oh, priming is a thing, but belief is not a thing. But belief is a form of priming. So
Yeah, exactly. They're both connected.
yeah, so it's just a synonym for that same concept. So,
Yeah.
those things exist in us. And yeah, but you know what? It's been an hour and 40 minutes. Is there anything else you want to touch on before we head off? Because I feel
No,
like it's a
this is
sweet
great.
spot.
This is great. I'm gonna go listen back to that other
I will
podcast.
need you too. And I think that maybe it would be cool if we could talk another time and maybe we could pick a topic that we don't agree on because I'm sure there's more stuff there. It
If
was
you
nice
want
to
to
catch up.
debate me on anything, I have a
Debate me,
debate channel. Yeah.
bro.
I know it's like
But
an
wait,
atheist meme,
I
but I
don't want
love
to
it.
debate you. I would like to discuss an idea, which
I want to destroy you, Amy. Come on.
that's
Come
so
on my
naughty.
channel.
You're
I
so
want to
naughty.
I want to bring the laser eyes out
Okay,
on you. Come
fine.
on.
Fine. I'll bring the
You
laser
deserve
eyes
it.
too. Fine. We can pick something we clearly don't agree on, and I would
Well,
love to have that conversation.
we could debate. I mean, the debates are interesting because I had that debate with Sarah and like we never got past. We were debating what's better, secular morality or Christian morality, and she wasn't even willing to admit that like Christians don't believe like Christians believe slavery is immoral, like most of them do.
Hmm.
But she was basically making a no true Scotsman fallacy that if a Christian doesn't accept that slavery is in the Bible and therefore moral, then they're not a real Christian. And I'm like, well, how do we even have this conversation?
Yeah, yeah. Well, that happens a lot, right? Well, that's not the real Christianity. Well, that's not the
Totally,
real Islam. And
totally,
it's like,
totally.
spare me the bullshit, okay?
Well, I'm just saying, if you want to debate, I'm doing debates on my Think Club channel once a week. So if you want to do that, but I'm happy to have a live stream with you anytime, man. I think you're great.
That's
So
awesome. Likewise, and we'll have to.
yeah,
We'll just have to pick a topic and like go on about it. Because sometimes like the meandering conversations are nice too, but it's also
yeah.
nice to have like just a mix of topical and on point and kind of really flesh something out. You
I
know?
love this. I love this quote from David Hume.
Read it.
Truth springs from argument among friends. And
Yeah.
I feel like that's completely accurate. Like you have to have a certain amount of trust with somebody in
Mm-hmm.
order to like be vulnerable in a debate. A lot of times these debates happen and they're not even close to getting to the truth because both parties are focused on
Dick
just
waving.
yeah, exactly. Eviscerating the other side. Just
Yes.
destruction.
This language that we're
Yeah.
always hearing. Oh, you got murked, you got destroyed, you got
Oh, I
owned, you
know.
got this, you got that. It's like,
Do you remember Isaac? Do you remember Isaac, the guy Devin always makes fun of,
oh
the
God, yes,
vegan? I did a
yes.
debate with him and it was so hilarious. There was this moment when I actually like zoned out because he was making the same argument over and
Dude,
over and
they're
over again.
template warriors. Whether it's about
I
veganism or
know.
morality, it's just the same shit over and over again. And it's because they don't care about veganism. They don't fucking care about morals. They
Totally. They
care
want to
about
win.
virtue signaling and they care about showing the audience they can dom on you.
So
And
true. So
it's
true.
like I'm so over the dick waving game. Trust me, you can wave your dick at me as much as you want. Mine's bigger. Okay? Like that's just how it goes. Facts.
Is it bigger? Is it bigger than Jessica Yaniv though? That's my
Way bigger. I would slap that bitch's face with my cock, Adam. Don't you
oh my
doubt that.
god. Oh my god. That's awesome. That's
Well,
totally
it
awesome.
was great to talk to you. I'm gonna 3, 2, 1, and you're gonna bye with me. Is that okay with you?
Okay.
All right, 3, 2, 1.
Later.
Bye.